Unknown Nine Awakening is truly one of the worst video games to release in 2024, and just over the past few years, it was buggy, it was broken, the storytelling was terrible, it was just executed very poorly, and overall, this is truly going to be Unknown Nine Awakening because in just a few weeks, nobody's going to be playing it anymore, given the drastic drop in players on Steam. But now, we have a Journo coming out talking about how they hate the majority of the game, but there are some really great elements making them look like absolute clowns. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, of course, usually when I see an article written by a journo, my expectations are extremely low, but in this case, I was baffled because they go on and on and on about how they don't like the game, but yet they're still trying to shill for it, trying to say, well, it doesn't make a great game, but it has some decent elements like, oh my gosh, you just need to give it up and admit that this game is trash. You need to stop shilling for companies like Bandai Namco. They're not going to give you any extra codes. They're not going to give you any extra access to their upcoming titles. You're just making yourself look like a buffoon. So this is from Games Hub, by the way. I haven't really heard much about them, and I'm glad I haven't up until this point, given they are titling their articles things like, we need more games like Unknown Nine Awakening. No, we don't. We need less games like Unknown Nine Awakening. The video game industry is in a state of disaster, and titles like this are the reason why. Bandai Namco went out of their way to buy Reflector Entertainment specifically for this game, like Sony went out of their way to buy Firewalk Studios for Concord because they thought that this was going to be some major title, and yeah, it initially had quite a lot going for it, like the original tech demos we saw for it were very pretty. We of course know that you had Anya in this game, the actress from The Witcher, who has not gotten a lot of roles in Hollywood, but she is still pretty good as Yennefer. You would think that when a company spends years and years and years developing something, they would actually have put time and money and effort into it. But this game had been in development for about 5 years, and we got a title that was just as broken, if not more broken, than the infamous Gollum game. I mean, this title was truly abysmal. I did a full playthrough. I did a review. It will be linked down below. It was terrible. There was nothing redeeming about this. And now you've got the media trying to shill for this title, even though they're admitting they hate most of it. And I wanted to quickly give you all a little bit of context as to who this author is, because her name is Leah J. Williams, and she doesn't post a ton of hot takes online, but if you start digging into her past, every couple of months she releases one. And you wouldn't be shocked to hear that she was affiliated with Kotaku. I'm Leah, the new writer and producer at Kotaku Australia back in 2019. But right underneath it is one of her last most controversial takes, and that is that she was okay with the censorship in Persona 3 Reload, saying that Persona 3 Reload has removed the transphobic beach scene, it's been rewritten entirely, and how she thinks that's okay because it means that the game is much more inclusive for newer gamers, which you're allowed to be uncomforted by any sort of content, but on the flip side, I'm allowed to say this should be in the game simply because I do not want games censored. I do not want games altered. Games are meant to sometimes be uncomfortable. Not every game needs to constantly have rainbows and sunshine and butterflies. Sometimes you can have controversial content, and this is a part of Persona 3's history. And when you're doing a remake or a remaster, you should put all of that content back into the remake or remaster, and that is not what they decided to do here, which of course was pretty controversial, and someone like her was praising the decision, saying it's more inclusive and how amazing it is of Atlas to do. But headed back to the original article because it's quite a doozy. They said Unknown Nine Awakening from Reflector Entertainment and Bandai Namco is not the prettiest game in the world. In fact, its character models lean into the uglier side. Okay, giving wide-eyed blank expressions and stiff mouths that have a lack of sync with the game's voice track. Its combat is also fairly unimpressive, with a baked-in repetition that makes the later stages bland. But even with these criticisms, by the way, you've criticized 85% of the game, I have a lot of love for it, and I firmly believe we need more games just like it. So we need more trash, is what this person's saying. Absolute clown world statement. You're going on and on about how you dislike the most important elements like the combat and character models, but yet you're saying that we need more titles like this? Absolutely not. We are of course, are getting tons of games that should have been successes like Skull and Bones, X-Defiant, Star Wars Outlaws, even a game like this, for example, but they're not because the development teams are putting in the least amount of effort possible. We are not talking about people who understand video games, who are passionate about video games. They just are pumping out products that are bad. And yes, part of that are the higher ups at the company who are forcing them to meet deadlines, and they're just saying, well, whatever you get done is whatever we're launching with. But the developers are still very much so a big part of why these games are failing. I cannot just blame the higher up corporate entities. I have to blame the people who are making these titles too. It says, though, but Unknown 9 Awakening is defiantly different. It feels like a game derived from the golden age of the PS3 and 360 era, in that it has a unique late 2000s or early 2010s flavor to it. No, it doesn't. The combat is repetitive. You have about 5 different enemy types throughout the game. There are 5 boss fights. 2 of them are one female character, and the other 3 are the main villain. You fight these bosses, I don't even want to call them that, multiple times. There's only one kind of mini boss that you face like 8 times throughout the game. There are bugs and glitches where you are glitching through the ground, you're glitching through parts of the environment. The enemies are doing the same. They're able to shoot through trees, they're able to shoot through barriers. There is, of course, this mechanic where you're jumping into, the mobs, and then sometimes when you're in them, you can't actually use their ability because it's glitched. Never mind the god-awful storytelling. Like, it is such an insult to say that this is derived from the golden age of the PS3 and Xbox 60 era. Sure, I guess if you're trying to say in the worst way possible, because I'm not denying the fact that there were a lot of bad games in that era, but that era had significantly better and higher quality games in totality than we are getting now in 2024. There's a nostalgia to it that's difficult to fully describe. It's in the vibes, the graphics, but the simplistic and extremely enjoyable gameplay. The gameplay is not enjoyable. The gameplay is, I guess, simplistic because when you start the game, you have all of the same moves you're gonna have at the end of the game. There's no gear system or anything. So basically, if you play an hour of this title, you know everything. You know the main boss and who he's gonna be and what his motive is. And yeah, there's like one slight twist towards the end of the game regarding your mentor, but it's not enough of a twist that it was shocking, right? You knew something was going to happen with either your main character, Haruna, or with the mentor character, and you could have went either way and you would have gotten the whole story of the game. It's so pathetic that we are seeing so many articles like this release for games that are complete and utter trash. These are perfect examples as to why you should not trust game journalists, why you should not take them seriously, and clearly when it comes to Unknown 9 Awakening, while this person is trying their best to shill for the game, it's not working out particularly well because nobody else likes this game. It had a 285 all-time peak player count at release, so abysmal, and it's only got 95 players in game right now, Saturday in the middle of the afternoon. And it's almost down to 0 players in the evening. I mean, as you can see, it had its all-time low just a couple of hours ago at 29 players. So we're not talking about it doing amazing numbers. And while we do not have the console player count, one would assume it's not much different from this. But yeah, I mean, basically everybody dislikes this game. If you head on over to Steam, it's got overall reviews mixed. They were sitting at negative previously, and a lot of the product received for free tags. They are handing this game out like candy to try to get people in the title to bump up their player numbers. It's not going to work. And we also know BioWare and EA are trying the same thing for the Veilguard with NVIDIA. But yeah, I mean, basically nobody's playing this game, and the only people that are talking about it are the mainstream media and then content creators like myself who are pointing and laughing, and this just goes to show how out of touch individuals like this are. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.